You're in the rant place where it's warm, which I shall henceforth refer to as the warm hole, where I will take the requests of anybody who gives me $15 a month on Patreon to rant about whatever they want me to rant about. That could be you by being that guy. So, the first one I've got here is Mr. Bones asking me to rant about people's misconceptions about you. The thing about misconceptions about me is that they run so many layers deep. It's like you don't even really know where to begin with unpacking shit, because some people might just like mishear what you say in a sentence outright. Like just straight up they hear the words wrong and misunderstand what you said and go forward based on that and like leave a comment or something like that. Or you might have people who like don't understand the premise of what you're saying and they make a response video. You know, you might have people who like sincerely do understand what you're saying but don't understand why you're saying it, and just like it's so many different layers of like people. You know, when I talk to people about like their issues or their misconceptions, because I get confused. You know, like people say shit about me that I read and I'm like, this doesn't check in with like what I understand about myself and my situation. So let me go and see why you think this by responding and, you know, sorting this out. And a lot of the time there are just, you know, so many different ways that people can be like, oh, it seemed like you had this kind of attitude based on what you were putting out, so that made me assume this about you, you know? And I'm just like, well, that wasn't the case. Like, that was a coincidence, or, you know, that was not my intentions. So, like, you know, because there's so much shit going on in my life at any given time. Like, what you see in the content is always going to reflect just a small portion of whatever's going on with me, you know? So like to make assumptions about like my headspace on the basis of what kind of things, like you can maybe in a broad sense get a like an idea of like what I think will work, you know, like, or whatever I seem to be scheming, but like I'm always working on so much different shit at the same time that never sees the light of day, that like, you know, is either just twiddled away at in the background over, you know, the space of weeks, or you know, I'm planning for something bigger, but then it just kind of falls through, and I don't do anything with those plans that I spent a lot of time on. You know, like there's so much shit that is not shown that if you try to understand based on just what you see, then you're missing out on a significant amount of the picture. You know, which is why I started up this series, Dead Projects Graveyard, on Patreon, though I've only done one episode of it, admittedly, and it should have had an episode out by now. On like by this, it should have had, I think, a few other episodes out by now. But nonetheless, I'm gonna try to get one done amidst these rant hole videos. But the reason I started that up was because I felt like it would give you a better idea of like why everything went the way that it did based on like what was going on at the time. Like, for instance, the first episode I released is about a light novel I attempted to write that I got a couple chapters into and had done some planning for and even made a song for, but I didn't end up going any farther with it because I was in the middle of making a video every single day for the month of August, and I just didn't have time to work on that. And, you know, by the time that was over with, I was trying to, like, focus on my career again, you know, and, like, get stuff done that I knew would be more popular than, like, taking a chance on this weird light novel that the more I got, you know, the more time I had away from it, the more I thought it seemed juvenile, or like I didn't care about this particular story enough to go through with writing this particular light novel, which meant I started a bunch of different books in the meantime and wrote, you know, so there's a bunch of dead projects that pile up in a graveyard. And, you know, all that time spent doing all that extra shit is the time that sort of defines, like, for me, how my time was spent. But, like, in terms of what is actually shown to the audience, it's like you have a very different perspective on how that month went, you know. But nonetheless, the fact that I talk about these things so often has gotten me out of having too many of these kinds of misunderstandings. Like, most of the people who make videos about me or, like, you know, sling shit about me on Twitter or something, they literally don't know anything about my content. They don't watch my shit. Like, you don't have to watch a whole lot of my shit to basically know what I'm about, you know? If you only watch main channel content, you might have to watch a lot of it to, like, get a full perspective on, like, what my sense of humor is and why I, like, talk about shows the way I do. But if you start watching After Dark, you're gonna understand why I think the way I do and, like, you know, what I'm trying to do at any given time. So, you know, I think that it's mostly people who just hear something, you know, like everybody's got an opinion about everyone. So if they hear something about you, if they realize that you exist, they're going to try to form an opinion, positive or negative. And like, if all anybody hears about me is like, oh, Digibro, that guy's a pedophile, you know, then that's what they're going to run with, even if they don't know fucking anything about, like, you know, literally anything about me. So like, yeah, there's gonna be tons of misunderstanding and like misinformation about me out there just because people run with whatever they fucking hear. But like, I think that enough people actually like pay attention to my stuff that like the truth eventually slowly permeates its way out as those people continually defend me in comments and be like, hey, Digibro is not this guy you're saying he is. Here's a video where he explains what his real, you know, opinions are. So, like, that's always helpful. Yeah, I guess this is a very broad take on the idea of misinformation about me, and that's your fucking rant, bitch!